Hello everyone. In this video I am doing a watercolor portrait and I'm using my precious Zen Art Studio watercolor paper. This paper I am revisiting because I remember how much I enjoy using it, and I just haven't treated myself lately to any good watercolor paper. I've been working a lot on non-watercolor papers and student grade papers, and it's just been a bit of a struggle. I just didn't realize it. So, yeah, it was time to bust out the good stuff. And I'm using my Daniel Smith watercolors in the what I call my autumn palette. This palette I put together myself with the idea of using autumn-inspired landscape colors, which I think lend themselves really well to portraiture. The colors that I used are mostly Payne's Gray, but a mix of Italian deep ochre and burnt umber. Also some Perylene green and some Bordeaux, which I think give it a nice type of vintage feel. I'm also incorporating some roses and little abstract elements here and there. But the main idea I had for this portrait was to block in the shapes similar to what you do in oil painting. And it was the reason, I should say, was because I was having trouble drawing this week and I needed to get back to more fundamental way of building a portrait. A lot of watercolor artists, at least in tutorials and most videos that I've seen, will almost always suggest building your portrait from a pencil drawing or some type of foundational drawing structure. And I just really wanted to bypass all that, so let's talk about the composition a little bit. This composition was unexpected, and while I was building this portrait, I realized that it kind of bothered me. Yeah, I tend to lean a lot intuitively into diagonal composition styles. And this one was more of an L shape, which is not my favorite to look at nor to do. It just ended up that way. But because it had somewhat of a balance in the diagonal way, it was quite a juxtaposition to me of balance and imbalance. So sometimes in our art we see life metaphors, right? Yeah. So I'll explain a little bit if you guys are new to compositions, or if you aren't and you know exactly what I'm talking about, you can probably agree. So on the left side of my portrait, I have more roses than I have on the right, but they are opposite each other as far as being upper and lower regions of the, let's call it the frame. So as far as the hair clusters go, we have more on the left and less on the right. So basically it is left heavy as far as elements go, but the amount of hair being more on the left and less on the right and being opposite each other create some balance there. But as far as the entire composition is concerned, it is in an L shape, so heavier on the left, and then it has literally the shape of an L. So if you look at the entire portrait painting with all its elements, it's going to be heavier on the left, and then the movement will be pointing toward the right. So it could work both ways. So if your L shape was like a backward L, you would still call it an L composition. So yeah, that was my thought process and my focus while trying to balance out this painting. I was trying to realize that I was not doing my usual diagonal composition in the way that it would normally play out. So I just went with it. I was enjoying the process because the paper was such a pleasure to work on. And although I was not using a photo reference, I was trying to remember what lighting elements would be like in real life. So another thing that I would like to do is use some better brushes on this paper. These particular brushes that I'm using today are synthetic and they're a bit beat up, so they're not the best for using on this really good paper. And yeah, I plan to explore more of my really good papers now that I kind of have a better idea from all the practice that I've done on my not so good paper. That way I've worked out a lot of the structural, foundational issues, and I'm not going to be throwing away a lot of my major mistakes, and also because I know how to wipe out the paper, especially on really good paper, like I did in my last video. I'm not too worried about using the precious paper anymore. So you guys will have to let me know if you've tried, or as watercolor artists, do you use this blocking technique rather than a underpainting, or an underdrawing is what I meant to say, because basically this is an underpainting. Since it is generally used in oils and acrylic and even charcoal drawing, I'm just wondering, because I don't see it a whole lot talked about on YouTube, or I've seen a few abstract artists do this, but it's not something I come across a whole lot in tutorials or the usual watercolor videos. So with that, I will leave you guys to enjoy the rest of the painting, and I hope you guys are enjoying your end of the year closeout 2025. And yeah, what have you guys learned this year on your art journey? Is there anything that you've had a breakthrough in, or just decided to take your art in a certain direction? I'd love to hear it down in the comments. And if you guys are new here, thanks for stopping by. Consider subscribing if you like this type of content. Like the video if you did like watching it. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.